Well, fancy meeting you here. Welcome back. Did you know that Ohio has over 12 castles? Many of them rumored to be haunted, which is why we're here. Today we're going to be talking about one of them, and that is Franklin Castle. So grab your biggest cup of your hottest tea and let's get into it. Franklin Castle. Kind of sounds like a place that a nerd would be, right? I don't know, Franklin? Wasn't there like an old children's show like called Franklin and it was a turtle? Anyone remember that? So this all came about because one day I was looking up weird stuff on my phone and I was looking for stuff to go and explore and I was like, are there any castles near me? Lo and behold, to my pleasant surprise, Franklin Castle was one of the items that popped up, and it was just the right distance that I was like, yeah, I'm willing to take a little cruise. What was it that caught my attention about this place? Well, here are the sub-headlines that I had seen at the time, just from like YouTube videos and other things that I had quickly looked up. Dead bodies found in the wall, a crazy doctor that performed who knows what, their dead babies in the building, secret passageways, secret tunnels, a Nazi party that killed people inside, a deranged father who killed his family one by one and covered it up. What? And now you've got this super haunted castle filled with all kinds of bad energy in it. I was like, okay, I'll go. Twist my arm. Franklin Castle, also known as the Tedman House. And I want to start this off with a quote that I found on the website of the current owners of the castle because it is now open for all kinds of tours, but we'll get into that. This just wrapped it up with a bow for me kind of perfectly because there's a lot of information on this place. They say, it is important to note that the Tedman family's history is shrouded in mystery, and whose past is so entangled with myth and truth that it defies easy dissection. It is here where the legend of the Franklin Castle begins. Alright, so let's go through a little timeline real quick. 1860. The first house was built on this land by four brothers from Canada, last name Wolverton, and they came to Cleveland to go to school. So these four brothers built a 2-story wooden house that they called Bachelor's Hall. So fitting, 4 boys going to college living in Bachelor's Hall. Now, about 5 years later, Johann Tedman and his wife Louise bought this house from those gentlemen, and sadly, only 5 years later, only 2 brothers were still living. What was going on at that school? Was it the land? Was it already cursed? I don't know. So they bought the land and in the house, and they were going to start their family there. Johann Tedman was a German immigrant. Like, he started as a grocer and then actually went into a business with a partner, and then he opened a bank. So if you have the money to open a bank, you know, you're doing pretty good for yourself. It was not long before tragedy struck. So fortunately, in 1881, his daughter Emma died from diabetes. She was a teenager at this point. So as you can imagine, this was devastating for the family. I read sources that said this happened before or after. One of the sources I read said within the 3 years after Emma passed away, 3 more of their infants passed away. Like, it sounded like they were very young, did not make it past a few years. Even a year after Emma passed away, his mom passed away. This was very devastating for their family. And right after Emma had passed away, it was so devastating that Johann took his wife and their 2 surviving children, August and Dora, and moved them into their summer home in Lakewood. They had a summer home. And it was there that he had this vision about building a castle. And as you can imagine, like, his wife, stricken with grief, he was like, oh, I want to do something for her. I want to do something for the kids. I want a new start. They tore down the old house and they started building this big, beautiful home. He enlisted the, like, most prestigious architectural firm at the time, Kudel and Richardson, which were also a German group. There are a lot of German immigrants that went to Cleveland. Just funny enough. I mean, it was full of German immigrants at the time. Didn't know that. Now you know. So these architects came up with this big, beautiful Victorian home. 4 stories, over 20 bedrooms, a ballroom on the 4th floor that went the length of the entire house. Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. And another dream that Johann had for this house was he wanted it to not only be big enough for him and his family, he wanted it to be a place that he could also share with other German immigrants coming to America trying to get their start. So they could come, they could stay with them until they got on their feet and could move out into their own places. What a nice guy, right? And unfortunately, as tragedy continuously struck Johann's life, his wife passed away in 1895 from liver disease. She was 57 years old. And at this point, Johann decided to leave the country. He went back to Germany and, oh my God, found himself a wife and moved back the following year. It did not take him long. And if you see pictures of him, like, I don't know, I guess he's like okay looking. Like, I don't know, I want to know more. Like, was his wife way younger? Was she his age? Was it like buy a wife? Because he had a lot of money at this time. Or like, what was the deal? Because he's not that cute. Like, look up pictures of him. Like, he's okay, I guess. I don't know, maybe I'm just picky. He moves back within a year, and in 1897, not even 2 years after his first wife had died, he decides to sell the castle and permanently move into a summer home in Lakewood. Johann actually passed away in 1908 at the age of 75, and the odd and disturbing, sad, I don't know, the weird thing about it is that when he died, no one else in his family was alive. His 2 kids that were still surviving, August and Dora, passed away. His new wife from Germany, dead. There was no one to claim all of the money that he had made from his endeavors. Like, there were no living relatives. Like, no one to take his money. Around this time, rumors began to spread. And I can't pinpoint when these rumors really did spread, but at some point rumors spread that, oh, don't you think it was kind of weird that he was the only one that survived out of his whole family and they died one by one? Maybe he killed them. Maybe he got fed up with his daughter, or, you know, she was around 13, like maybe she had a suitor and he didn't like it and he killed her, or maybe with his wife, he had had enough of her and he wanted a new wife, so he killed his wife. Maybe he killed the babies. Maybe he was an evil man. Which, like, I don't know. But would an evil man make a place for immigrants to come and live and get on their feet? Was it a guise? I don't know. So let's go back. After he sold the house, it is said that a doctor had moved into the house, and there's not a lot of information about that, but more rumors from that come about whatever this doctor was doing in that house. Supposedly bodies were found on the walls. They thought maybe he was performing illegal abortions. It's really hard to pinpoint. Now, from 1921 to 1968, the house was taken over by a German-American League for Culture. It was a cultural organization that was involved in political causes in its early years and later functioned as a German signing club. Now think about that. In its early years, it was involved in political causes. 1921, around 1939, World War II starts. And, okay, I'm just going to say this. I didn't know this. Look, I had a hard time focusing in history, and that is why I am taking the time to learn things now. Because for whatever reason, it's finally sinking in and sticking. But Did you know that World War II lasted from 1939 to 1945? That's a long time. 6 years. Whoa, of devastation. Like, I didn't know that. And like, I mean, I'm embarrassed. I'm honestly quite embarrassed that I didn't know that. I really didn't pay attention in school. There's a lot more that I don't know than that. So, but if you didn't know that, and we both didn't know that, now we know. This German Cultural League took over the building, and when they first took it over, 1921, guess what else was happening? Prohibition. What a terrible, terrible time. And like, think about this too, like in Prohibition, like, it was like guys were able to figure out where to go, but you know, like, it wasn't like really good for like ladies to be going out. So can you imagine how much harder it would have been as a woman if you wanted to just have your little cocktail on a Friday night? Like, it was probably so difficult because like you weren't allowed to drink, and drinking was probably for whores if anyone could get it, you know what I mean? This place was actually used to produce, they used to produce illegal liquor, and a whiskey sill was actually found in a hidden room later on. So we know that this place was used for prohibition. Crazy. Let's go back to the World War II thing. There is an article that actually talks about some of the members of this cultural facility. And in this article, they were actually protesting the aggression of Hitler against German citizens as well as Germany's neighbors. At that time, there were people in this club that were saying, like, we don't agree with Hitler, we need to denounce him. I don't know what came of that. There is an article from something called The Plain Dealer, from December 20th of 1938, so it was right before the war really started. Also, this is where we get the rumors that there was a Nazi party living here, and it is said that at one of their meetings something went wrong and they used machine guns and killed all these people in the house. And it was rumored that you would still hear screams years later of echoes of what had happened that fateful night. But there's nothing to back these claims up. Now, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I'm saying there's nothing to back it up. Which, cover up or it didn't happen, I don't know. It's up to you to decide what you think about that one. Now, when the house was sold in 1968, rumors began to spread that the house was haunted by the ghosts of Miss Tedman and her daughter Emma, who died on the property but not in that house, but in the other house that was on the property. So, from 1968 to 1974, the family that lived there, they claimed the house was haunted, and they didn't stay there long. 1968 to 1974, they were in and out. And the next owner decided to capitalize on what the previous family had said, and he started to offer like tours of this haunted Franklin Castle to the public. And in 1975, there's a whole picture of a reporter that went to this house that found a hidden room behind a panel in one of the rooms of the house. So I'm thinking this may have been where that whiskey still was at, possibly. And also in 1975, human bones were found in a closet. A lot of people believed that it was planted by the new owner, just trying to get publicity for his ghost tours of the property. But something that I found kind of interesting when I was reading the website for the place, I didn't know how to take this. So you tell me how you take this, because I didn't know if this means that the bones were ever found or that they were able to decide that it wasn't done for publicity. But from the website for the Franklin Castle, they say, quote, "Human bones found in 1975 behind a wall on the second floor. At first, it was thought that a new owner had put them there to gain attention for his ghost walks of the property. Years later, it turned out that this wasn't true." But what wasn't true? that he put them there, or that they were there, or that he didn't. Like, I have a hard time figuring it out. 1985. Michael DeVinco purchased the house and restored it. Michael DeVinco's stage name was Mickey Deans. Not to be confused with Mickey D's. Mickey Dean. And he was the last husband of the gorgeous Judy Garland. Yes, it's true. So he was a star just living in Cleveland in his castle. This man would host wild parties, too. He lived there from 1985 until he sold the house in 1999, so he got a really nice run out of it. And there are articles that say that he claimed it was haunted. Now, just a side note, when we said that he restored the house, he spent almost $1 million in renovations. So 1985, $1 million was like probably like, what is that, like maybe like 7 million today? 10 million? I don't know. Because I just remember even in the 90s, it was like, all I need is $1 million. I'd never have to work again. It's not like that today, but you know. So there is an article where DeVinco claims that the house is haunted. He said he'd have a lot of incidents with poltergeist activity. And eventually, the incidents began to kind of slow down as the renovations continued. And he felt as if the spirits kind of accepted him as the new owner. Or maybe even felt with the restorations that maybe he was Tedman himself. He updated the house the way it used to be in its glory day. He wanted to give the house back his dignity. And maybe with how much he cared about the home and putting love and effort back into it, maybe he had gained the respect of the spirits because all of the poltergeist activity started to die down. Now, 1999, the house is sold, but the house also goes through a house fire that was set by an arsonist. The fire department comes on scene, and this arsonist had gone from room to room, starting fires. And it was someone that just came in from the street. He didn't have any ties to this house. When the fire department asked him, "Why would you do this?" the man replied, "I had to burn down the castle because it is pure evil." And that's all I can find on that, and I just think that's weird. Was he just a wild hobo that, you know, like they say the craziest things, oh my god, like, or was there something really evil about this house? The new owner put a lot of money into restoring it, but unfortunately was not able to complete the restoration. I mean, it sounds like this fire did a lot of damage. Now let's fast forward a little further. 2011, the house is purchased by a European couple who owns it now. They finished the restoration. Kit and Pascal are the current owners. It took them 9 years and they restored it one floor at a time. And it is beautiful. So when I went to go and see this place myself, it was not yet open to the public, and all that I could find at the time was that it was purchased by new owners that were restoring it. And I drove to this house. I looked at it like a creep. I drove around the block a couple times. I sat in front of it in my car. I took pictures. And I really was just captivated by this house. And I'm like, oh, I just want to go and knock on the door. And like I just want to go ghost hunting in it. But I didn't. But the good news is they have opened it. It is open. They are doing overnights. They are doing ghost hunts. They're doing all kinds of events here. You can rent it out. You could have a castle for a day. And the pricing, honestly, is all very affordable. It doesn't seem like they're trying to capitalize on this in like a really messed up way where it's like, yeah, rent it for $10,000. Like, everything, in my opinion, is pretty affordable. You can go there. So this is definitely on my list. It is just weird though, like if you go to their website for the actual place, it's thefranklincastle.com, and I'll link it below. The way they put this actual website together is kind of eerie. You have to check it out. Like, The actual portion of the website that has the menu of it has such weird names. Like the first name says Moongate. What is Moongate? And under the section of Moongate, you have the subsections of Login, Connect, Overnight Notes, and Castle Camera, which I don't really know what Castle Camera is. But Moongate, doesn't that just sound weird? And if you go through Castle Camera, they'll show you pictures of the different rooms you can look through. I thought that maybe they had like some overnight things. I'm not really sure what it is. They're like weird, sketchy photos. And then next on the subject line is the Bellman. What's the Bellman? So you click the Bellman. It says the Bellman, I want to tell you a story. And that takes you through the voyage and the stories of the Franklin Castle. And then there's the Ballroom, and that tells you about castle tours, paranormal research. They have a clue mystery game night, My Castle for a Day, medieval market. So it just kind of shows you everything, which, what is the medieval market? I want to go. Oh, and there's all these like weird kind of creepy pictures behind everything too. You gotta check it out. Oh, wait, and then there's in the upper corner, and this is just kind of weird. So there's one that says activity, and it's a camera, but when you click it, it says paranormal activity meter in Emma's room, and it shows you like the meter, but then above it, it's like you're looking at a big, it's like you're looking at a giant chandelier from underneath that's made out of antlers, and it's shaking. So I don't really know what to think about that. There's a lot on here, and it's really interesting. I want to talk about some of the stuff that I had initially read that made me like, it made my blood curl. That I still couldn't find enough information to really back up everything, but this is from littlehouseofhorrors.com, and they talk about the Franklin Castle. I mean, this is from November 13th of 2023, so it's a fairly new article. It's known as the most haunted house in Ohio. They talk about, our friend Johann Tedman, and this says that their daughter was 15 when she died of the consequences of diabetes, and then his mom died weeks after, and then immediately after, people were speculating if they were cursed. And then in the 3 years that followed, 3 more Tedman children were buried, of which the youngest was just an infant, and the speculations came loose. Did Tedman have something to hide? They talk about the secret halls and tunnels in the house. According to legend, Louise used these tunnels to escape her husband's bad temper. And when she died in 1895, more strange things came to surface. People claimed that he had several love affairs, sometimes even in the house itself. He allegedly forced women to do it with him, and he didn't even shy away from murder. So, there were rumors he was a bad dude. So Franklin Castle is supposed to be a place for meetings and parties, but instead the house was sold to Nazis. Legend says 20 people were killed in the house with machine guns because of political disagreements. Later, residents claimed they could hear the fight over and over again inside the house, and after that, the house remained vacant until it was bought in 1968 by James Romano and his family. His wife was always fascinated by the house, and she wanted to turn it into a restaurant, but the ghosts were not so keen on that. This says that when the Romanos were trying to restore the house, his wife had sent the kids upstairs to play, and a little while later, the 4 kids came downstairs to ask for cookies, but they wanted an extra cookie, and she's like, why? Do you need another cookie? There's enough for each of you. Well, they said they wanted to give them to the sad girl who was crying upstairs. And Miss Romano went upstairs with them with the cookies, and she didn't see anyone, but the kids were insisting that they were playing with other kids up there all the time. Not just with the crying girl, other children. Were these children the dead Tedman kids? And apparently the sound of organ music would fill the house on regular occasions, even though the Romanos did not own an organ. And footsteps and sounds of glass and turning ceiling lamps made the family get help from some paranormal investigators. And during one of these investigations, one of the investigators ran out of the house screaming, and a priest was asked to perform an exorcism. The priest told the family there were evil spirits in the house and that they should leave because they were too powerful to remove. So in 1974, they said, screw this, I'm out. So the house was then sold to a Sam Muscatello, who turned the place into a church. So with all the ghost stories, though, it wasn't really helpful to his case. So he then decided to turn it into a tourist attraction instead. He was intrigued by the secret passageways and tunnels, and he decided to explore the house. In one of the hidden rooms, he made this gruesome discovery, and he found human bones. So that's where we're like, did he put them there? We don't know. So he sold the house, but a lot of stories that were written in the books by people that had come to visit it came to light. A woman in black was seen in the tower room from time to time. They believe she might be the ghost of Rachel, who was a maid, who wanted nothing to do with Tedman's sweet talk, since we know he was a hoe now. And they're thinking, yeah, well, she was probably strangled by Tedman because, you know, people feel like they're choking when they're up there. And people that spent the night there claimed to heard a woman suffocating, but when they went up, no one was there. The spirit of the 13-year-old niece of Tedman is said to haunt the house as well. Her name was Karen. She was hung in one of the tunnels behind the ballroom because she was insane, apparently. Tedman claimed he wanted to put the girl out of her misery, but in truth, he caught her in bed with one of his grandsons. No. Someone was killed in one of the rooms with an axe, and no less than 12 baby bodies were found in a secret room. Rumors say a doctor briefly lived in the house after Tedman, and he experimented on the babies. Sounds of babies crying are frequently heard as well. So this is the stuff that just got me into this. This is actually like way more interesting than a lot of the stuff that I read. So it says another woman had great plans for the mansion, Michelle Heimberger, and she wanted to restore it to the way that it once was. But unfortunately, that huge fire in November of 1999 happened just a few months after she bought it. And that ended this dream. So the house was partly destroyed. She didn't have the money to fix it. And later a group of people bought it to turn it into a club. The house remained untouched until 2006, and people began to grow suspicious. Apparently it was used for shooting porn movies. It remained unoccupied after that. The boarded up windows and the big fence with the no entry signs on it give the house a creepy and depressive look. What did you think about that? Kind of interesting, right? Like, what do you think? Do you think that the rumors about Tedman are true? Was he just like the neighborhood hoe and he had enough of his family and there was just drama and he was like, just get rid of them, right? I don't know, but it's worth a look, and I hope that you enjoyed this. And when we collect again, I'm going to talk about one of these other castles because castles are cool. I love castles. Do you like castles? I mean, who doesn't? All right, thanks for coming by. Have a wonderful evening, and see you later.